Welcome to our first discussion of Book 4. I'm Brent, and Bill is here with me again, and we're going to discuss the topic of hatred and evil. But first, I want us to remember where we are in Book 4. So, based on the weakness of evil people shown us in Chapter 2, for they are unable to gain virtue and get what they really long for, and based on the reality shown us in Chapter 3, that wicked people, their wickedness is itself their punishment. So a person enslaved by sin is more like an animal than a true human being. Based on those things, how should we respond to mistreatment? That's the focus of chapter 4. Philosophy says that wickedness makes people miserable, and the more wicked a person is, the more wretched he is. So a person who does something unjust against someone else is more unhappy than the victim, and so they're worthy of pity. As she says at the end of the chapter, hatred has no place in the hearts of the wise. No place for hatred, because it's stupid to hate someone who's good, and it's illogical to hate someone who's evil. Now, how true is that? Bill, what do you think?
Yeah, it resonates all throughout Scripture, doesn't
Good.
it? In the sense of the fallenness of creation, the sense in which sin impacts every part of life, and of course all of our relationships. We live in a fallen world, and so as a result of that, we are going to injure, and we're going to be injured. And there's a sense of sin brings with it its own condemnation and judgment and pain and unhappiness. So that's just a part of the fall. It seems to me.
And so because of that, well, I mean, we could go in different directions here. I'm thinking of Jeremiah when he said, talking of Israel, the whole head is sick, the whole heart
Right.
is faint. You're like a person who's just covered from head to toe in bruises and injuries. Why are you going to keep on being injured? So there's that place for pity. Now, how could we reconcile that philosophy saying we should be pitying the wicked with the fact that God hates evil and wickedness?
Yeah. God hates God hates the evil and the wickedness, and the manifestation. Well, I guess here's what I'm thinking. Just as we were preparing for our discussion, it just keeps coming back to me. Romans 1, right? In the sense that for the wrath of God is being revealed, right, from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. And I think there's a sense in which um, there is a call to obedience in terms of original creation. There's the fall of man into sin. God says, um, uh, if you eat of the tree, then dying you will surely die. Part of that death is being a fallen creature. Part of being a fallen creature is to have all of this, in the sense of partaking of fallen creation, a sense of a sense of despair, a sense of a sense of emptiness as part of creation, which is God expressing His wrath against fallen humanity. It seems to me. I don't know.
And yet, and we don't want to say, so God hates evil and wickedness, and in a sense the fear of the Lord is to hate evil,
Right.
but just like, I mean, God is the one who kills and makes alive. We don't get to just do that.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
So we are also ones who are worthy of pity. We're not sort of from on high saying, look at all those wicked evil people out there from a state of perfection.
Right.
But I think Jesus helps to teach us here too, because even if we were in a state of perfection, if we were sinlessly perfect as human beings, how would we view someone who is sinful? Well, if we were perfectly like Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
there would be pity.
Exactly.
Because and even in the images we see of sin in the Gospels, the person who's leprous
Mm-hmm.
in a pitiable condition, the person
Mm-hmm.
who's blind, and Jesus comes toward them,
Right.
even touching the leprous person, and when the leprous he asks, "What do you want me to do for you? I want to be clean. If you will, I will.
Yeah.
I will cleanse you." So we also need to be like that in having pity, not hatred of like a sinful hatred and anger,
A
but rather
scorn.
a scorn. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, isn't that what Jesus um, uh, targets the Pharisees for?
Mm,
I mean, you've got two men, one up into the temple to pray,
mm,
one a Pharisee, the other a publican. One is, the Pharisee stood and praised within himself, Father, I thank you that I am not as other men, extortioners,
mm,
unjust, even as this public. I mean, there's just this
mm,
scorn in his voice. But the publican is beating on his breast. God be merciful to me,
mm,
a sinner.
mm,
And I think the whole point of that story is to identify just how wicked the Pharisees' notion of self righteousness and and how keeping a distance from the publicans and the sinners but that's diametrically opposed to the gospel. The
mm,
word became flesh and dwelt among us. I mean, that
mm,
notion of dwelling among us, God dwelling among
mm,
us, is one of the most magnificent
mm,
descriptions in all of the
mm,
Bible of the condescension of Christ. He
mm,
comes into this. He doesn't have to, right?
mm,
He doesn't have to. There's no compunction. There's nothing in us that in any way draws or creates within Christ the desire to come and rescue us because there are attributes that indwell
right.
us that induce him to do that. No,
Yes.
he comes to us precisely
Mm,
because we are to be pitied.
mm.
Yeah.
And we're going beyond Boethius here, but not against what philosophy
Mm-hmm.
says, bringing
Mm-hmm.
in the nature of God in the person of Jesus to show even more fully how
Yeah.
we should pity the
Mm-hmm.
wicked.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking of the Apostle Paul as well when he
Mm-hmm.
says in Philippians 3:18, when he warns the Philippians and he says, there are many of whom I've often told you, and now tell you, even with tears,
Mm-hmm.
that they are
Mm-hmm.
enemies of the cross of Christ."
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So let's close our discussion by asking this, and by leaving everyone who's listening to try to answer this. How do you view people who are sinning against you?
Mm.
And how ought you to view those imprisoned by sin?